As promised, I'm going to be going over some of the replays that you guys have sent to me, asking questions like, hey, Kevin, what happens here? This specific replay got sent to me by Alicization, and he asked, what about Hydra Bane? I have a difficult time fighting against Hydra Bane with your double Stargate opener, especially if they come from multiple angles. How do I deal with that? So we're going to be having a look at how to exactly beat Hydra Bane with this and see if there's anything you can do. For reference, this player is a 4.4k Protoss player and he's playing against a 4.7k Zerg. So let's just make sure that, first of all, that the build order he's doing is correct. As always, that's going to be one of the main things, because from there on out we have a framework from which we can kind of look at the game and say, hey, compared to what is supposed to happen, this happened. Why is that the case? Why didn't the correct thing happen? Starts with... I never like walling like this. I always like putting my second structure over here, so it's easier to close the wall. Like, easier for me to plan. But, I mean, it's completely fine. If he knows how to do it like this, I'm not gonna complain about it. Opponent is playing hatchery first. He scouts it with the probe. And he's just gonna patrol here to see if any links come out at any point. I like that. I don't mind that. At higher level, usually you see people try to deny some of the mining of the opponent with your probe by quickly right-clicking and then clicking the stop command. So you just continuously are pretending to be mining with your probe, while in reality you're not really doing that at all. Okay. Adept gets started, immediately chrono boosted, and we should see, as a follow-up, a Stargate straight away. Yeah, there we go. Solid moves here by Alicization. Probe gets pushed away, should always be sent home, should actually not be given up, yeah. The moment you see the link, you just go home, and then your next follow-up scout is going to be with the Adept. Second Adept should always start immediately, just in case your opponent tries the link run by or go for a link flood. So maybe a minor mistake there in losing that probe, but that usually doesn't lose you the game. I say usually, sometimes it does, but usually it doesn't. So Adept shades in. There's a couple of hits from the Queen. I don't like this. This is actually a mistake. So whenever you want to shade in with your Adept to scout, your goal is to keep your health as high as possible. And ideally, you don't even really get hit. If you want to walk in and try to attack this, you don't just want to walk into a queen without having a shade out, because that means the links can go for you as well. This Adept is just gonna die. Like, or at least it should just die. Actually, play this a little bit sloppy. But I'm 90% sure that this Adept was not supposed to live. This should be a cancel. Good. If the links just kind of chase him. There. Then that's a dead Adept. You always want to shade in and then walk away. So you shade and run away. Run the opposite direction of where your shade is going. So you can kind of be in two places at once, especially if you just want to be scouting. Starts with the Void Ray. I like that. Opponent is opening up with Overlord Speed. That's completely fine, because really that just means that he's investing in Overlord Speed, which is kind of useless in a way, because you're gonna show your Void Ray anyway. So it's nice if your opponent opens Overlord Speed. Instead of just losing 100 minerals for an Overlord, he's now gonna lose the extra money that it costs to get the Overlord Speed as well. So basically the Overlord Speed is just your free bonus. Sure, it's gonna be able to spot that you're going double Stargate, but that's really not the worst thing that there is. He's even gonna get a second Overlord, which would be fantastic. I might just barely escape. It's gonna be close at least. There's a crap ton of money as well. Like, actually a crap ton of money. So what I like to do here is, whenever I try to take my third base, I just always make sure to have my Void Ray and these two Adepts in the same control group. So I keep one Adept in the wall, then two Adepts and a Void Ray and a Probe will be moving towards my third base to take it. Meanwhile, I should already be building an Oracle over here, which is something that we see Alicization not do. And as a result, he's floating a lot of money, because A, his third is delayed, and B, there's no follow-up units yet. Now, you can ask, like, hey, how do people usually do that? Something that's smart to do is to have all your structures hotkeyed. So also your Stargate, your Robos, etc., etc. If you don't have a hotkey for them yet, try to find the hotkey for them, so that while you're moving towards your third base, you can easily start your Oracle. It should already most likely be a little bit earlier, but that's not the case here. I like this little wall that he's creating. This is exactly what you want to be doing. He's standing here with 2 adepts, a pylon, and you're gonna need like 12 to 14 links to actually be capable of killing these. And at that point, as a Protoss, you can just warp in extra adepts. Now, if something like this happens, obviously you're gonna want to warp in some adepts at home as well. We see a lack of workers for a while already, which is bad. Let's just go back for a bit. So, yeah, okay, he's building here at least, but you always want to be continuously building workers once you got your 3rd base going, basically. And you can even throw a couple of chrono boost on that. We see the chrono boost isn't being spent very properly, which is annoying. Not the end of the world. We also see that there is no Oracle on the way. Now, when you play no Oracle, there's a couple of things that are a lot harder. First of all, like big link floods can be a little bit harder to stop, like on your 3rd base or something like that, because oracles provide a crap ton of value against links. But also what oracles do is they give you stasis wards later on in the game against Hydra Bane attacks or against Roach Queen attacks. And on top of that, they also gave way more consistent scouting than Void Rays ever can. For a Void Ray to be capable of scouting, you need to go in. An Oracle can just use the Revelation spell on a hatchery and then see what comes out of the axe, or can see the drone count. Oracle also is a lot faster and just a more reliable scout. Yeah, there we go. He's actually building an Oracle. That's good. He's getting his Twilight. Getting no +1 yet. I don't mind that. That's good. He's lacking a little bit of gas mining in the main. And the probe count generally is just too low. So at this point, I want to have 66 workers already at about 6 minutes in. Right now, we're 14 workers down. Did we lose any workers? We lost 2 workers. So really, we're 13 to 14 workers down of where we would want to be ideally. That's a big freaking deal, okay? That's the difference between being down 8 workers or being up 6. So that's just something to keep in mind, all right? That this situation, if the build was executed properly here, would be extremely, extremely advantageous for the Protoss already. Even if it's just as simple as just continuously building probes, throwing a couple of chrono boosts on there. So we see maximum chrono boost saving at this moment for Alicization. He's continuing building Void Rays for now, which okay. I do like to throw down a Templar Archives at some point, which could be at this point. Well, if I were him, I would definitely throw it down at this point. Because at this point, the Zerg most likely is going to be making decisions. It's like, hey, am I going to be playing Hydra Bane? Am I going to be playing Ling Bane? Am I going to be playing some Roach push? Like, what is happening? You need to figure this out as a TOS. This is on you. What you need to do with your Oracle is you need to fly around. You need to tag this base. Then you need to tag this base. Then you tag this. You're looking for tag structures. You're looking for things. It's like, hey, what is my opponent doing and how do I want to respond against that? Also, you want to see, hey, is there a fort base? And if there is a fort base, what the heck do I want to do against that? Maybe I can cancel it once with my Void Rays. Maybe I can't. And if I see a fort base, I probably should be getting a fort of my own. And it probably should have been going down a pretty long time ago. This is, by the way, the wrong side for a fort base. This is the more common fort base, and in my opinion, slightly better fort base as well. But Lightshade is not a very good map for TOS in general, so it's rough. It's rough here. Let me tell you that much. Worker count is still too low. For people not aware, the worker counts that we are always working to are, so on 1 base 22, 2 base 44, 3 base 66, 4 base 75. And then if you get a very fast 5th base, you can go 81, 82 workers. As TOS, you never really want to go above those numbers of 81, 82, because your army just becomes a little bit too small, which isn't great. So I'd not recommend that. But yeah, you want to go to these numbers usually as quickly as you can, so you get a nice fast income. Now we see a couple of gateways being added here. Is the Templar Archives done yet? No, not yet, but it has started. If you're a little bit afraid, what I like to do, if you don't have that many units, is I usually like to build 1 Archon first, and then go into my Templar. Because then if a couple of Banelings or Links show up, at least you have an Archon for tanking abilities, right? That's always nice to do. I think it's a good thing in general to have kind of as a backup plan in case things go wrong and you're not paying attention for half a second. You don't just want to lose every single Templar to some Banelings. Now, I like this stasis ward. That is good. We see cannons. We see batteries over here. See a couple of adepts here. I wouldn't even mind him warping in like a couple of zealots. Not too many, but just a couple of zealots to give this army a little bit of an extra boost. Now, Void Rays are basically back home. And this is another point which is important, is that we see absolutely no spread on the map right now. We have zero vision. And with this composition that we're currently working with, being in position is everything, right? We have a lot of positional spells like Storm, Void Rays, they work well with cannons. So what we could do potentially is we have 3 adepts over here, is to send 1 adept over here, 1 adept over here, and then 1 adept over here. Now if we take a quick look at this thing, then you can see that the moment you have an adept here, it kind of covers that bottom side. Let me actually just remove those pings. They're going to be annoying. You can kind of cover this bottom side. Your adept over here covers this middle, which is this ramp and this ramp. And then your top adept covers this ramp. So you know wherever your opponent will attack, if your opponent attacks, you know where it will be. And you can position yourself accordingly. This helps, because the moment you see the army of your opponent with one of those units, you can put a revelation on them with your oracle. But also imagine you have a counterattack set up or something like that. The moment you see him, that would be the timing you're sending in your counterattack. You have those 3-4 extra seconds. You get in position with your main army, you send in the counterattack. And these 3 adepts are not really gonna do too much in the main fight anyway, so that's going to be very, very helpful. So we see a big investment here in gateways. There's 8 gateways. You see a lot of cannons, which I do like. I always love seeing cannons. There already probably should be a little bit more gas units, but because the eco sucked a little bit in the early game and we only see 2 guys in gas for now, in these gases, I think also in the main, we just don't have the Archon count that ideally we would have. Now, it's important to try and get some storms on. Never build pylons like this either, too easy to kill for banelings. And these storms, this is why it's important to be in position, right? So then you can just preemptively storm a little bit. You can probably get these banelings down and most likely just be completely fine here. Lost the Pines, I mean, he's still kind of fine. At this point, I would suggest actually adding 2 or 3 Archons. The moment you get up to 4, 5 Templar, you really want to grow your Archon count, which is going to kind of be your standing army together with your Void Rays. Okay? Oh, these Archons are going to be stuck in here. Oh, that's a big yikes. It's going to need to take out this pylon and rebuild it. That's very, very painful. Once again, the moment one of our bases finishes, we want to be going towards the worker count that is kind of designated for that base. Now, come on. He's locking himself in even further. That's not good. So the moment we have 4 bases, we want to be going to 75. Now, this is a big Artosis pylon. It's a single pylon covering 5 structures. That's not something you really want to do. There's also, once again, no army in position. Templars completely caught out of position. Void Rays are floating in dead space, basically. And the pylon gets taken out, and this base basically is gone as well. Just because he had no vision of his opponent's army, which is not great. Still down in income as well. I think at this point, the game is almost over. Where it's still possible to win this game, but it's going to be rather difficult. Just because you lost your 4th base, your opponent had a decent attack on your 3rd, and the mining just has been subpar the entire game. +1 on air hasn't started yet, which is also important. The moment you start transitioning into carriers, which we see our protagonist here is doing, you really need to try to go into +1 ASAP as well. I like to always say, whenever you start your fleet beacon, if you don't already have +1 started, get it started now, because it's just something you're really gonna need on these carriers. Once carapace upgrades come out, it becomes important. Holy crap, this guy's gonna do a massive drop. So yeah, just these Archons not being here is really, really painful. In my opinion, as long as your opponent is on Hydra Bane, you don't really need to rush out the carriers. You can tech to them, but the most important thing is to just not die. And a good way to not die is to add in Archons with your Templar army. Spread out those Zealots, like I mentioned before. So one over here. Look, the Zealot that would be over here would completely spot out this army move out, basically. It would see that. It would allow you to position yourself properly. Archons... just having Archons is nice in case something like this happens. You have these links over here, which, if you're not really quick with the storms, could just surround and kill all your Templar. Now, luckily here, Alicization is fast enough with the storms, and he has a couple of Zealots, which help a lot and get some decent storms. I also want you guys to pay close attention here to actually the unit loss step. So we see right now it's 4.7 against 3.5. And after this fight with an army that is not even completely in position, right? There's like half the army is here, but just with having the Templar in position, you're gonna be able to get extremely cost-efficient trades. And I'll show you that right now. Like only his Templar were in position, the rest still needed to walk there. The storms were okay. He's gonna end up losing the fort base again, which sucks, don't get me wrong. But the overall fight went so much better than before. And don't forget, people always say, well, what happens if I just let the Zerg continuously expand and he's gonna have so much creep? If you can just beat their army, you win the game. You can be on 2 base if you're maxed on Carrier, Templar, Archon, and the other guy has Hydra Bane. You're gonna be in an okay spot as long as you have very efficient fights. Sure, it's annoying that you lost this base, and probably you want to rebuild it ASAP. So I'm confused why we're not seeing these guys take out this Overlord. Trying to get busy with a little drop. But yeah, it doesn't matter too much as long as your fights are good, is what I'm trying to say. Now, another thing that is interesting, by the way, especially because our man know or said, hey, I struggle really hard with the multitask, with the Hydra Bane run bys. Something that you want to be doing is you want to be getting cannons and then leave one Templar at all of your outside bases. And if your opponent is keen on dropping, and you notice that, which he has, just leave one Templar here and get like 2-3 cannons as well. Because cannons and Templar together are extremely powerful. They have insane synergy. Like absolutely insane synergy. They can stop 60-70 supply of Zerg just by having 1 or 2 Templar, 2 Storms available, 4 or 5 cannons with battery. Especially if it's Hydras and Lings and a couple of Banelings mixed in there. Another thing that's important to note is that the moment you start floating a lot of gas, it's time to add in more Archons. So if we're playing against a Hydra Bane composition, which in this case we are, you want to add in more Archons. If you're playing against a non-Baneling composition, usually getting more Archons isn't super useful. You still want to get 2-3 Archons, but not much more than that. Then you want to get your gas into maybe a couple more Templars. Let's say 7 or 8 Templar total. And against Hydra Bane, you don't really need more than 4 or 5 Templar because the fights tend to be so fast. Adding more Archons tends to be better. So here is the drop. Which the nice thing about drops with this army is that it's really easy to respond to because you have a lot of air units. So you're not going to be owned by your own Sim City. You can just send your air units back usually and just clean this up. I mean, this is what? Maybe 10 Hydra. This is 12 Hydras and he has 4 Void Rays and 4 Carriers. You just send those over and keep your Storm Zealot army over here on the bottom side to ensure that you can kill that. And that should be absolutely fine. Oh, this is the accidental defense with the 2 carriers that he forgot he had. But yeah, this fight obviously was very bad. Like, this was a bad sequence of events, basically. And now it's also losing the bottom side at the same time because that wasn't set up yet. Don't forget, this fort base should have been done basically at the 8-minute mark with like 4 or 5 cannons, right? Like 740, 750. When that's not the case, the game obviously gets harder if you don't have a proper setup. I like that he's retaking this base. This is good. And now all he needs to do is invest a crap ton in Templar. It's just so important. Just getting more Templar. It's not and then morphing them into Archons as well. Let's not forget about that. I've never seen this in my life. The 4 Broodlord harass. Guess there's a first thing for everything. I guess they're really... Ooh. Yeah, you can just use your air units for this. I don't mind that at all. That's a pretty solid move, honestly. Okay, so this cannon gets taken out. Hydra's move in, start taking out his thing. Just having a Templar here would be great. Just being capable of plumping down a storm is extremely helpful. Maybe he could have even recalled the Templars if he was a bit faster. I would not recommend doing it at this point anymore. And I think this game here just pretty much ends. Like at this point, I'd say you're pretty freaking dead. Even if you manage to clean this up, it's pretty useless. So the main things I would say in this game that cost him the game is he was out of position multiple times, many times. So try to get some more map control with Adept, Zealots, use your Oracle for Revelation, that type of stuff. The moment you start floating gas, start building more Templar and morph them into Archons. Your transitions were pretty okay, the build order was okay, you were lacking probes quite a bit. Your Chrono Boost usage wasn't super brilliant, but you know, honestly, not a bad attempt. Just make sure that the map control and your unit positioning with this build is very important to be in the right position so you can zone out Banelings, you can zone out Hydras, and yeah, just leave one Templar at every single base with a couple of cannons, and you'll see how much easier life will get for you. So I hope that helps for you, and we'll be going into our second game. Nice. Alright, game number 2. It's going to be Guitar King versus River. Now, I was gonna actually, the first thing I was gonna say is, say, hey, take a look at this wall. This is not quite how it's supposed to be. But my man Guitar King already mentions it, as he realizes the wall's not correct. Get the Stargate at an appropriate time. I don't want to focus too much on executing the build order properly, because you can actually just copy the build order. One of the things that is actually important when it comes to practicing build orders and kind of how to do them is the way that I'd always suggest is how to practice build orders is by first of all, get your build order. I like to write it down on a piece of paper. You can do it on a second monitor. I personally prefer just a piece of paper because you can move it around more easily. You don't have to look away. Like you just hold it under your monitor or below you so you can look at it. And what you do is you just lower the game speed. So you start by practicing a build order on the lowest amount of game speed, and you ensure that everything you do with this build order is the correct way. So your probe micro is proper, your building placement is proper, and you just start on slower game speed. Once you get that build order down and you hit the benchmark that is associated with the build order, you start increasing the game speed until you get to the fastest or faster game speed, which is the regular game speed in StarCraft 2, right? So this is very similar to how you would practice on an instrument. Is if you try to play something new, you slow it down, and then you start increasing the speed again and again and again until you are at the actual speed. I definitely would recommend people to do this. It seems easier to practice this way. It goes faster rather than having to redo every single time on faster, because you're not sure even yet how the build is working. So you keep glancing over at your papers like, hey, when was I supposed to build the barracks? And on your paper it says 4:30 and you're already 5:20 in game. So just take it real slow, ensure that you're learning the correct habits. If the game is very slow, you can also think about things like building placements. You can properly throw down your wall. Maybe you can even start incorporating things like little bits of probe micro, like ensuring that they're on the right mineral patch. Just because you're at such a slow speed, you really have time to work kind of on the fundamentals of the early game. Just making sure that everything is correct, making sure that everything is proper, and that's very important. So that's something that I definitely recommend. So I don't want to be going over this build order too much because, like I said, we have to replace from last week. Guitar King's opening up properly. First, Adept shades is across the map. Let's have a look what he's going to be able to do with it. See, hey, there's a third base here. I like that he's getting that. Just kind of that confirmation. He's gonna scout into the natural, check the drone count. Sees, hey, there's 7 drones. That seems pretty fine, and opens up with a Void Ray. At home, I like this. This is a nice opener. Out of Guitar King, opens up with 2 Adepts rather than 3 so far. I really don't mind it. It's actually gonna be a proper wall, by the way. It didn't look like one, but this is almost completely fine. Yeah, that's great. Okay, it's gonna get a third adept. This is the only thing in the build order that I'm not entirely sure about, is whether 2 or 3 adepts is better. If you play 2 adept, you just get a faster third base. If you play 3 adept, it's easier for you to move out with your first 2 adepts, and it's easier for you to kind of get things done, easier to defend as well. Now we see second unit is going to be a Void Ray rather than an Oracle here. It's allowed. The thing is, I just don't really recommend it for basically the aforementioned reasons, right? That the moment you don't have an Oracle, scouting is just becoming so freaking difficult that usually you're actually going to take more damage with your Void Rays, or you will need to be way over aggressive with them in order to get the same info that you would get way easier with an Oracle. Also, Oracles are great at killing workers, while Void Rays are mediocre at best at killing workers. Oracles are very fast. You can clear some creep with Oracles, which you can't do with just Void Rays unless there's active tumors. Like, you can throw Revelations down to kill tumors. You can't do that right now, which sucks. On top of that, his Forge and Twilight were too fast, supposed to be after the third Void Ray if I recall correctly. It's getting everything in time though, I do like this. Getting extra gateways, getting a good probe count. Guitar playing is playing a nice little game here. Now, ideally what you want, if your name is Guitar King here, is that you want to see, hey, how many gases is there? What is the tech? But all of these things are so difficult to scout because there's so much creep. It's very scary to dive in deep. So yeah, this is really where the Oracle kind of shines, and I'm a bit disappointed he doesn't have an Oracle, but it's okay. It's okay, Guitar King. Yes, he's going in right now, being chased by 5 queens. This guy knows no fear. What the heck? He actually knows absolutely no fear. Poop, flies in, pops another Overlord, and goes out. If there was 1 or 2 queens over here, that would have been probably a slightly different story, but even now his info is really mediocre, right? He sees Evo, Roachwarn, he doesn't know if there's a gas here, doesn't know if there's a gas here, doesn't know about the gases here. Don't forget, the moment Zerg is not on 6 gas yet, it basically just means that they're most likely doing something aggressive or they're really far behind. So if Zerg is not on 6 gas yet, the thing you want to be doing is you want to check, hey, what's popping from these larvae? And if what's popping from these larvae is drones, then it just means Zerg is in a crap position. But if Zerg is popping out roaches and they're on 4 gas, they're most likely going to all-in you with roaches. I mean, it's just kind of makes some sense, because Zerg units tend to be relatively gas heavy. You need at least 6 gas for basically every single composition, except for Ling Bane, where you're going to be fine with like 4 gas, but Ling Bane's not really a composition that you see, because it just dies against Storm and Archon. So, yeah, just something to keep in mind. He's getting a fast forward base. I like this. He's going straight into Storm. Adding extra gateways. I would love to see some cannons already being added as well, as that's going to be one of the most important things. I also don't mind if you start with an Archon here to just have a little bit more certainty in your unit movement. This is very good. But don't forget, your defense is only as strong as the defense at your weakest base, basically. So right now, this base is like 5 cannons, or well, 3 cannons, 2 batteries, gonna get up to 5 cannons. This base has 0, which means the moment that the Zerg decides to attack over here, Guitar King is just in a crap ton of trouble. I like that he's still being active with the Void Rays. Usually what's a good angle for Void Rays is an area where you can bounce in between the main base and another base. So very often it's the main and the fort. If you think of Death Aura, it would be the main and the fort. This map, it's the main and the fort. Jagannatha would be the main and the fort. Oxide would be the main and the fort. Because then the Zerg needs defense on 2 angles, which is always a lot harder. And very often you can snipe a base. Especially the lower level you get, the easier it is to do these things. Now, I'd always recommend to not get too many Stormers. And the moment you get basically too many Templar ready, just to get a couple of Archons as well. Like 6 Templar or so, I think is fine. Cannon count here is absolutely abysmal. Definitely gonna need to add like 3-4 cannon. Oh, why do I even speak? You want to be actually, when you're playing against someone playing Hydra Bane, which He is right now. He just isn't aware of it. It's like, hey, what's a good way to figure out if my opponent's going to go banelings? Is to check if he's getting melee upgrades or not. If your opponent is not getting melee upgrades, most likely it's not banelings. And even if it is banelings without melee upgrades, they're just a little bit worse. So it's fine. Try to spread out the cannons, so banelings can just splash on top of all of them really easily. That's kind of an important thing to note. Now we see 79 workers here for Guitar King. Okay, he hasn't transferred workers properly yet. I was gonna say he has way too little workers on the fourth for this to be properly 79 workers. And he's gonna be going into +1. The moment you see a hive, usually you want to be getting a fleet beacon. So fleet beacon timing is absolutely perfect. See extra stargates going down. Archons being built as well. Zealot Rumbys being set up. This is kind of good. I'm a big fan of this. And the moment, you know, by the way, another thing why the Oracle is so extremely useful. Basically over here, you could see, hey, if his army is over here, I can perhaps keep my Void Rays over here, and you see the army is very small. Keep your Void Rays over here, Zealot Runby on the bottom side. These things are going to be very, very useful, right? Like this is... the Oracle has so many different uses that not building one is really just a waste. Yeah, I do like this Zealot Runby. As the single Zealot is trying his hardest to kill a drone, and I like this Zealot Runby as well with a little bit of an Observer to clear some creep. Gas is not being taken, which is a mistake. Definitely should be working towards taking that gas, if not just straight up taking it. Just boom, go in. Also the very late transfer is obviously bad. We see at this point I wouldn't even mind getting a faster 5th base as well. So at this point you could be taking this base. It's floating so much money. Usually when you start floating money with this, you want either an extra base or more cannons. But he has plenty of cannons, so what you really want is an extra base. The upgrades for the air are coming along pretty slow, I have to admit. +1 is finished, but +2 should probably be on the way already as well on this Cybercore. Could be thinking about getting the Flux Flames upgrades here for the Void Rays as well. So these move a little bit more rapidly, and I love to okay. So Storm is great, but Storm doesn't stack. So 13 Templar is just simply too many. Between 4 and 6 is usually the number that I stick to. It's like, hey, if I get between 4 and 6 Templar, that should give me enough storms for an entire fight. And if I run out of storms, I can just go back home, wait until I get more storms. It's more important to have a couple of Archons in this army to be able to fight Corruptors properly. That's really more important. So I'd say get 3-4 extra Archons in this army. Three extra Archons in this army at least. Maybe even 4. And then still have like 5 Templar for storming. That should be absolutely fantastic. Also, always leave 1 Templar with every cannon line. Cannons by themselves are okay. Cannons with a single High Templar with 2 storms are absolutely broken. And this move out is good, or like clearing some creep is, I like that, you know, but you do need proper defense at the base. Yeah, this Templar Warfare is solid. And also at this point I'd love to see a 5th already. He has so much money and he's not going to be spending that, so why not just take this base, build like 12 cannons. And one of the cool things that you can do is, so if you think about how you can move out in that case, right? Hello? What's my camera doing? Well, that's okay. So we'll just do it like this. If you think about how you can move out here, imagine you take this base and you start moving out. You can just kind of take this base, move out over here, and while your cannons are building, because you move out in the same direction or the same angle where your base is at, this base kind of is safe until the cannons go up. So whenever you take a base somewhere, you want to push out that same direction. So if you want to take this base, you push maybe from over here or from over here. So it's easy for you to defend, and most run-bys or counterattacks will come on the other side. I mean, there's no Zerg that sees an army push out over here and go like, oh, I think this is a good time to counterattack this base. No, that's not how it works. So whenever you take a base and you don't want to wait for cannons or static to finish, you just push out from that direction to kind of make it safe from there. Okay, so you see the Zerg is going into Broodlord, triple Evo, to start sucking energy with the Viper. And he also is getting some upgrades, at least on his Spire. Once again, getting upgrade as Toss here is extremely important. I wouldn't even mind seeing a second Cyber Core here for double air upgrades. Gonna be going into shield upgrades. Where's your forge? So continuing shield upgrades. Something that's cool to do if you're struggling with upgrades is to put them on your Nexus hotkey as well. That's what I do these days. So I have my Cyber Core and have my forges on my Nexus hotkey. Whenever I try to build probes or whatever, you just see them. You're like, hey, wait, they're not building anything. Let me just, you know, add a new upgrade, because really on carriers it's very important to get a quick upgrade. Way too many storms, like I mentioned before. Not enough Archons here. Archons not that useful once Broodlords are out, but before that they're very, very useful. The moment you see Broodlords and you have this army, I'd always recommend adding a couple of Tempests in here. So you can snipe Broodlords, get an Oracle as well, so you can always spot where your opponent's army is. It's going to be quite important. And from there on, I'll just start adding more Void Rays, a couple of Tempests, more Void. Oh my god, are you joking? No, thank god. Okay, Oracles, very important, so you can... also for the Vipers, right? You want to be able to deny the Viper abducts on your unit. You can see them coming from a while away. Does he have... no, he doesn't have the Flux Veins yet, which is annoying. I'd love to see that. I like this little rotation. Now there's a move that I've been doing a lot lately, and that's whenever I get into this type of scenario, I absolutely love to get a mothership and just recall to the opponent's side. So I'll be over here with my main army, attacking some static defense. I have like a tag with an Oracle on Corruptor Viper. Then my mothership flies over here, and the moment I see him getting a bit too close, bang, you recall to the other side. And you start killing static defense over here. Then you fly the mothership to the top part of the map, and bam, you do it from there basically, and it's very fun. It works pretty well. I absolutely love it. But yeah, at this point, if you're playing against Corruptor, Viper, Broodlord, definitely do recommend adding Tempest, adding Oracles in this case. It is possible to play without it, but you need to be very, very careful to never truly engage into your opponent. And not get your Templar caught by these Corruptors. Now, Mr. Broodlord man is actually a little bit slow with setting his Broodlords over, so did a good job there. But yeah, this isn't looking too great here for Guitar King in these fights. Oh! This is a very good move, by the way. I really do enjoy this one. Except shooting that couple caught there with the carrier. At this point, yeah, it's important to have a 5th base. I like that this is the case. And you probably want to lower your worker count a little bit. So I'd say go down to 67, 65 maybe even. If you're a Guitar King here, you have a pretty decent... Oh my god, he still hasn't mined this gas too much. If you're Guitar King here, you don't want to keep too many workers because you want a bigger army, right? You already have a pretty decent bank. You're not going to be losing too much, especially once you get Tempest. Like, these are long-range units meant for trades over a longer period of time. So I'd recommend not really, not getting too many workers in this case, because it just makes your base army so much smaller. This is one of the reasons as well why Oracles are so extremely important. You can see this type of move happening in that case. Now he just lost legit every single Templar that he had. He's gonna get kind of jumped upon. His opponent doesn't have the Corruptor count to do it, but actually with the what do you call it, parasitic bomb, it's going to be absolutely fine. So Zerg gets a pretty okay trade here. Still down in units lost, but that trade was way too good for the Zerg. That should really never happen. And there's a couple of factors there, right? So we see +2 only starting now. I feel like +3 should have been done already at this point. We should probably, if he would have continued to upgrade after +1 finished and added a second Cyber Core, he would be on 3-2 right now, and probably +3 armor almost done as well. Or at least +2 armor already done for a very long time. I wouldn't recommend going up to too many Tempest. I'd say 6 Tempest is kind of the max. You don't really need more than that to one-shoot any unit that your opponent can build. So maybe get a 7th, but going up to 9 just costs way too much supply. Tempest actually don't have a lot of DPS, so I don't recommend getting much more than that. Tempest also only function if they are combined with an Oracle. Otherwise, you can't even utilize their range. So actually just flying around with Tempest like this is completely useless. Like, this makes absolutely no sense. You just have lower DPS in your army than you should be having. Because this could also just be like 6 Void Rays or something like that. Which obviously would be way better in this situation if you're not going to be shooting at your opponent from a distance. Which is why really whenever you use Tempest, honestly, if you're not using an Oracle in combination with them, you don't think you can do that, just don't play Tempest. Because you really do need tags on. Just play Carrier Void Ray and you can do some aggressive recalling in that case. In general, having a Mothership tends to be kind of okay. Even if you just keep it with your main army, just so you can kind of... you cloak your units and it's difficult for your opponent to grab anything that isn't the Mothership. Now, of course, the Mothership is easily abductable, so that does suck. We have good upgrades here for the Zerg, by the way, coming on the air right now. So it's only +2 for the toss, and the Zerg's already getting 3-2 upgrades. So, or well, 2-3 actually, I have to say. Getting a bunch of cannons, this is good. Every single time he does this, it makes me happy. I wouldn't mind getting 1 extra battery here, slightly more gas. He started this gas mining again. So yeah, this is looking good. Against Broodlords, there's not much the Broodlord player can do against pure Tempest, honestly. They just get absolutely blasted. That's pretty much what's showing here, right? And he just gets kind of blasted. It's good to see. Really is good to see. But yeah, without an Oracle, you see how tight it is. At this point, for the Zerg player, if he gets a Fungal off, you're just gonna lose like 3-4 Tempests to the Abducts, which is what tends to happen. But Guitar King honestly is doing a good job. Another thing here, by the way, is that Mass Corruptor actually would just straight up win the game here. Not sure what the Zerg supply is in. This army looks kind of weak, honestly. But because there's no real body in this army, pure Corruptor could just fly on top of this and basically kill every single carrier, every single Tempest. Because the DPS of these units actually isn't that high. Now, Templar are gonna get absolutely blasted. You see, the micro of the Zerg isn't brilliant, but ends up getting quite some things done anyway. Yeah, this is kind of what I meant. If instead of like 13 Corruptors here, this is like just 22 or 23 Corruptors, it's gonna be even easier. Yeah, this army required way more Void Rays. This is the problem if you get too many Tempests, if your work count is too high. The more supply you get, so the less workers, the better it gets for TOS, because the more units we have, like we're always gonna need the same amount of Tempest to one-shot something. So if you have Tempest, if you have an army consisting of let's say 100 supply and 25 supply of that army is Tempest, that means that 25% of your army doesn't really have a lot of DPS, and you're still going to be able to one-shot units, which is nice, but it's just a big portion of your army. But if you have 180 supply of army and you only have 20 probes left, then you have 25 supply of Tempest. I don't even know what the percentage is there, but that sounds like very little. Maybe like 12 or something like that, 15, I don't know, some 14, somewhere around there, which is a lot less, and that's kind of a big deal. So if you're playing with a Tempest army, you actually want a lower worker count. You want lots of cannons spread around the map already, so your bases are secure. And you actually just want to be working with an army that has a lot of DPS and can defend those Tempests if there is a Corruptor fly. And these are things that are very, very important. And that's not right now what Guitar King is doing, and he's struggling because of that. His gas income also sucks terribly. He actually seems to be losing this game pretty hard, in my opinion. If the Zerg would realize what's going on, probably could even push into a cannon line, even though I tend to not recommend that for Zerg players. Zerg also hasn't been doing any run-bys, but neither has our Pro Toss, so that's fine. If you're stuck in this situation, by the way, as a toss, and you realize, hey, I don't have a lot of gas at all, you can start doing a couple of Zealot run-bys onto Spore Balls, or just like into bases. Not this one because they're spines, but this base, like this is very, very good. I do like this. This is a good call here by Guitar King, who takes out that top base. And the upgrades on his Zealots suck. Like, that's not pretend here, but he's actually gonna get blasted by the small amount of links. Links with adrenal glands. Well upgraded links, 3-3 links with adrenal glands are so freaking ridiculous. That's actually insane. Holy crap. That's actually insane. Oh, wow. So Guitar King once again going into a semi-Tempest army. 4 Tempest, 5th Tempest on the way. He has a couple of Archons here. He has a couple of Void Rays here. Archons are getting absolutely blasted here. Yeah, it's not something I'd recommend. Flies forward. This is also not something I'd recommend. The Zerg can actually just straight up fight this army, by the way. He could have literally just killed every single Void Ray there, and then there would have been nothing left. Also, Zerg doesn't have any Vipers anymore, which is bad for the Zerg. Yeah, realizes it gets 4 more. We see, if these turn into Banelings, this base could potentially be dead. I feel like these Lings will just blast these Zealots again one day. They definitely will. They definitely will. Yeah, Link, man, with the upgrades are so good. Ooh, this is a nice little move. Using the choke, but even then, I think the Links might be too much. If he actually would have continued fighting. Now, let's take a look at the army composition at this point. Once again, we see 7 Tempest, we see 6 Void Rays, we see a single Archon. It's not really it. Not sure what these guys are talking about. I'm not sure if it's like a custom game or something, but they seem quite friendly. Gas still not being taken. This is something that we've seen quite a bit in this game. This is a relatively high level game, by the way. I think he's playing quite well. Some of the concepts he's doing are pretty good. Like he's harassing well, he's controlling his units well, but we're really just missing the X factor. No, we really are just missing like a solid army comp and just less probes, to be honest. We just need less probes. These cannons all get cancelled once again. Was that a brave attempt? This actually, funnily enough, is actually good for him. The fact that he just lost like 10-12 workers, that's actually going to help him out in the long run. Now this is exactly what I was talking about. So you recall your army to a part of the map, or just move to a part of the map, then you build a base here and then you push out. Here we go. This is beautiful. This is great. Now he's moving way too far forward with his main army. If there's Vipers in this army and Zerg is paying attention, you now have a dead mothership. Yeah, there we go. Big surprise. Even something like Fungals on top of this or more Viper pools could have happened here. Yeah, this army out of the target is just looking too small to truly be on the map at this point. I'm not a massive fan. He gets a couple of decent feedbacks going. At this point, if the Corruptors fly in once again, this army is completely dead. That's actually just what's going to happen, I guess. Yeah. And this actually should be game, I guess. Oh, Zerg played a good game. I like the way the Zerg controlled this, honestly. Corruptor, Viper, Root Lord. Yeah, TOS is pretty dead at this point. I mean, I'd be very, very surprised if TOS manages to win this game being down 100 supply and having such poor mining. This is one of the things that you do need to keep in mind if you're playing with a lower worker count, is that you might not be as easily able to mine the entire map very quickly. So it's important, if you realize it's going to be a split map scenario, the reason why you want less probes is because you want more efficient fights. Because eventually, even if it's slow, you're going to mine the entire map, and every fight that you take is important to be cost efficient. So you can stay higher worker count if you're working with an army that's going to be able to take away one of your opponent's bases. But you're not going to be able to do that with a Void Ray Tempest army. You're not going to be able to expand to your opponent's 8th base and be like, oh, this is mine now, and I'm just going to have more minerals this game. No, you're prepared. The reason why you get rid of probes and want more efficient fights is because you're preparing for a complete split map scenario. That is the main reason, obviously. Maybe I should have mentioned that a bit faster, but I am not the fastest. That is okay. So yeah, he's going to be taking his final base now, and you see he still has some decent mining going on. He's still not getting the gas here. Yeah, at this point he's just absolutely dead. He's going to get completely blasted, and I really see no future. It's like 5 Void Rays. I think the game should end pretty soon. I think this is it now. Yeah. GG. There we go. Nice. So yeah, that's our second game. I actually think we covered quite a lot in these past 2 games, and I actually think that's going to be it for today's Harstem Hour. Now, if your replay didn't get picked, I'm sorry. I got a bunch of replays, and I just had a look at it, which I thought were going to be the most informative. I thank you all for watching. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you learned something. If you didn't learn anything, smash the like button, and maybe next week you will learn something. Don't forget to subscribe as well, so you get all my videos, and I hope to see you all next time for a new Harstem Hour, and tomorrow a new Road to Rank 1. Nice. See you then. Bye-bye.